And good morning again, friends. If this is the first session you've joined, I'm Joe from ACFO, and I'm proud to be your host for our virtual career fair sessions. If you've watched some of the earlier sessions today, you're already sick and tired of hearing me. I'm just going to remind you very quickly that our guest today now is the Treasury Board. They're going to be giving the presentation. You can bring your questions to them as well. So if you go to slido.com, slido.com, and enter the code ACFO-ACAF, you can submit your questions there. Our friends from Treasury Board have a short presentation, then we'll turn it over to questions. So I'm going to get out of your way and send it over to Isabel, who's going to kick things off from Treasury Board. Isabel.
Thank you, Joe. So good morning, everyone. We're excited to be here at the ACFO Virtual Career Fair to represent the corporate services sector within TBS. Donc, nous allons présenter un aperçu des fonctions clés du Secrétariat du Conseil du Trésor, ainsi que de notre direction de la gestion financière. But first, I'd like to introduce myself and my colleagues. My name is Isabelle Morin. I'm the manager responsible for the external reporting, the estimates, and the budget control. And my colleagues here are Nicole Pelado, Manager of Integrated Business Planning and Resource Allocation, and Luc Racine, Manager of Corporate Accounting, who will start our presentation and provide an overview of TBS. Luc, you're on mute.
Bonjour, nous allons commencer avec donner un aperçu des responsabilités du Secrétariat du Conseil du Trésor. Le Secrétariat du Conseil du Trésor, il y a 4 responsabilités essentielles. La surveillance des dépenses, leadership administratif, rôle d'employeur et ainsi que la surveillance réglementaire. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? À quoi les gens pensent-ils quand on parle du Secrétariat du Conseil du Trésor? On parle d'un organisme public central qui supporte le Conseil du Trésor. On parle aussi d'un centre d'expertise qui fournit des conseils et développe des politiques pour l'administration fédérale en gestion financière, gestion des ressources humaines, gestion de l'information et des technologies de l'information. TBS is also kind of the gateway to funding, responsible for the review of your TB submissions, also responsible for the GC estimates process. TBS is also responsible for the management accountability framework and coordination of the annual assessments. I'll pass it over to Nicole.
All right, so I kind of get the fun part of it. It's what people may not realize, at least what from our perspective. As you can see here, we support 2 ministers and 6 deputy ministers, and that leads to a good 30 personnel in the management team at the ADM DG level around that. So you can see that there's a little bit of a level of complexity from that perspective, but what that actually brings to us as a department is we have quite a variety of things that do happen at TBS that we may not be able to expect at any given time. For example, we've got on the items here, we have the Centre for Greening Governments, the Office of Public Sector Accessibility, Canadian Digital Service, and the Regulatory Cooperation Council. These are all files that I believe have appeared at TBS roughly over the last 5 years, and they all have a head to manage them. So you can see that what TBS does is constantly growing and evolving, changing. This leads us to be a key player in other key initiatives, but what also kind of brings it home is we do occasionally do things that actually are public facing, and that's something people may not realize about TBS. The Canadian Digital Service that was mentioned earlier, they really do they were responsible for the development of the COVID alert application in partnership with the government of Ontario and I believe a couple other places, but that's something we all can use on a day-to-day basis. You may already have the application on your phone, and at the end of the day, actually one of the things that people might not realize is that we actually make the payments for our benefits. So if you as an individual go to the dentist and you get your teeth cleaned and then you submit your claim to the government, you're going to get a check. So you might get a check for $200. We're not paying that check, but what we are paying is we're paying the company for the public service dental plan. And so we have millions of dollars going out from our accounting services from TBS on a daily basis to pay these companies. So essentially what I'm getting at is we provide services to a lot of really interesting initiatives that you may not even know about. Joe, if we can move to the next slide, that'd be fabulous. Please and thanks. So from that lens, we get to serve, so we are, again, corporate services sector, so we're not directly involved in these initiatives, but you can imagine that all of the financial services that we provide heavily support allowing these different initiatives, programs to do their work. And so we thought it might be interesting to let you know what we've been up to in our areas in financial management over the last little bit and where we're going. So I'll start us off a little bit with the fact that we're constantly looking to provide continuous improvement. So no matter where we're at, there's always a way to do better. Technology is evolving. We're learning from others around us. And I wanted to kind of focus on the services we're providing to clients on the planning side of it. And then I'll pass it off to my colleagues. So over the last couple of years, we've been modernizing the way that we provide our financial forecasting. And that's really been with the optics of making more consistent reports for our clients. As I mentioned earlier, we have about 30 heads of sectors. So consistency in reporting to them is something that we're looking to continue improving to make sure that they're getting the same types of financial information, that it's simplified so that we can focus on providing more strategic advice. We are also looking at the data analytics side of it. My team's one of the teams that are looking at how exactly can we leverage data analytics to provide more strategic advice. What's really neat about our setup in the Financial Management Directorate is we not only have the traditional financial management services, but we do have the Departmental Project Management Office. We have TV submissions team, and we have the integrated business planning risk profile for the department. And that provides us the opportunity to more easily look at how data analytics can actually help provide strategic services, but it also helps us look at a more holistic view when we're providing financial management services to the department. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Isabelle.
Thank you, Nicole. Donc, du point de vue des autorisations, comme tous les ministères sûrement sont très occupés avec les propositions ou l'élaboration des nouvelles initiatives pour être considérées dans le prochain budget fédéral. Donc, des fonctions qui en découlent de cette activité, évidemment, il y a l'établissement des coûts, donc de travailler étroitement avec les secteurs ainsi que les FMA pour justement bien établir les coûts, puis de bien analyser les informations qui sont requises pour avoir des documents qui vont monter au bureau du président pour son approbation. Mais aussi, il y a qui en découle par la suite les documents de budget de dépenses. Donc, toutes les autorisations financières qui suivent le cycle des estimés finalement. Mais avec tout ça, on doit travailler étroitement avec plusieurs agences centraux, entre autres le secteur des opérations du gouvernement, ainsi que le ministère des Finances et le bureau du contrôleur, bureau du Conseil privé. Donc, ça amène vraiment un élément qui est très intéressant de pouvoir travailler avec toutes ces agences centraux-là, puis qui amène vraiment une expérience qui est vraiment très différente, puis un développement de carrière très bon pour le futur. Donc, ça l'explique un peu cette composante-là de notre diapo. Donc, je vais faire suivre à Luc Racine pour la prochaine étape.
I'll follow with talking a bit about our financial operations. It has all the traditional groups and payables, receivables, travel team, financial policy, corporate accounting, and internal control. We all report to the same director, except for the internal control team that reports directly to our DCFO. Our stakeholders include the Receiver General, the Office of the Auditor General, Office of Controller General, client departments, as well as our Departmental Audit Committee. As an employee in financial operations, you might get an opportunity to work on some interesting files, such as our quarterly reports on contingent liabilities, which, as the employer for the core public administration, include all the claims and litigation around employment and compensation, labor relation issues. Another interesting file is some of our major capital project related to some of these government-wide initiatives. So we capitalize some major software such as the financial management transformation. Another unique file to TBS is the administration of the statutory EBP cost recovery process across the government, which represents approximately $3.5 billion in dollars for the pension plan, Canada and Quebec pension plans, EI, and supplementary death benefit. On top of that, we also process approximately $2.7 billion in net expenditures related to our TB Vote 20, which is the public service insurance vote, largely related to the health and dental claims under the Public Service Health Care Plan, Public Service Dental Care Plan, and also for the Pensioners Dental Service Plan. All that to say that there's quite a few interesting files that come across our financial operations, and that gives a good overview of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And I'll pass it over to Joe.
Great, thanks very much, guys. That was an excellent rundown. And it's, one of these, the benefit even for me of a lot of these sessions is getting to know the breadth of work that our members do. I mean, we think we know, and then you start getting the specifics, and the breadth is really impressive. So as a reminder for folks, you can submit your questions on Slido, slido.com, and the code is ACFO-ACAF. I'll put that up on screen in just 1 second, but to get the discussion started while I get that called up, one question we've had, I think, for every single group that's presented, I don't know if it's the same person submitting it or just a really popular question, but talk a little bit about the access to training that you guys have as TBS members. Is there like a dollar per member or dollar per employee budget for PD, or how has your access to PD and training been as employees of Treasury Board?
All right, so I'm going to kind of lead our questions. I'm going to say my experience is that we haven't necessarily had a particular amount off the top of my head, but then I'm going to have to say I'm going to let my colleagues answer a little more clearly. I haven't felt that there's been any barriers to training, I guess, in my experience at Treasury Board. So I guess I just don't know about the amount. If anybody else has anything to add.
So maybe I can just kind of add that we support, the career development in terms of the CPA designation. So, for instance, 2 of my employees were part of the program and are currently ongoing through the program. So that is definitely something that's supported by TBS. As well as any attendance to any conferences and any training that's relevant to the work itself hasn't been really any barriers, as Nicole has suggested.
Great, thank you very much for that. So we have a couple of questions. I love these. People are obviously looking ahead to the return to workplace. They're dreaming of life back in the workplace, I guess. So there's a couple of questions there together, and maybe we'll start with those two and merge them together. Talk a little bit about the workplace setup. Whether it's an activity-based workplace, Office 2.0. Do you have offices? And then there's a question: is there a gym at the TBS building? One of our departments yesterday mentioned there's a gym in the building, and I think it's piqued people's interest. So maybe talk a little bit about life actually in the facility once everyone's welcome to go back there.
That's completely fair. So right now, everybody has their own cubicle. I mean, as with any department, I suspect over the long term, we're all looking at what we're doing when we go back to the office, because it has provided us the opportunity to look at, okay, well, what's working about this work at home setup? So it's provided just a better look at what that can mean. So that's currently life means that we have a cubicle in our own office, but I suspect for the future we'll be looking at options for, and that might include an activity based workspace. But at this point we are in a workspace 2.0 atmosphere, so there are collaborative spaces, and there are spaces for you to go hide away if you need to focus on your own. So it's a lot of fun. We can go to our offices and we have we can just hook up our tablets and just start working on our own, kind of like we are at home, but then you have everybody dynamically in the room working together. Is there a gym at the TBS building? So we do not have a gym, but we have a really nice room that's set up so that you can go do your yoga, your weight training, your fitness classes, online. Like I think there's a few fitness classes that are on roster. We share the building with the Department of Finance, so I know that there are people across TBS and finance that do provide classes, but there's not a gym per se, but there's definitely a really nice room for that. Did you guys want to add anything to that, Luke and Isabel?
No, I'm seeing some head shakes no, so that's fine. We'll go on to the next one. So couple of questions is sort of about availability of positions. First of all, is there a lot of turnover at TBS in the finance operations? And then also there was a question, just, what levels are you looking to recruit currently, or what levels are you anticipating staffing in the near future?
Sounds good. So I guess I'll start and then anybody else can add on to it. So sorry, I just realized that I'm staring at a top screen, so it looks like I'm not staring at everybody that I'm replying to. So is there a lot of turnover in TBS and finance? I think we go through a cyclical turnover route. Like, our management team has been in place for quite a while now. And so there's not too much turnover on that front. And I would say probably every 5 years we go through a routine turnover. And I think that's pretty natural as you see like a larger turnover. And I think that's pretty natural as you see people looking for different opportunities. But I feel like it's a pretty healthy turnover for the team. And what levels are we looking to recruit currently? So I don't believe we have any recruitment needs currently, but we did want to come here today, and because there is always a chance. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow sometimes, right? Somebody has a great opportunity to go somewhere else, it's the right job for them, and they decide to leave. And so we want to make sure that we are recruiting the right talent, and we want to make sure that that what we have to offer. Anything to add?
I agree with you, Nicole.
All right. All right.
Joe, I think you're on mute.
Oh, that's why. Yeah.
You're right, I'm on mute. You'd figure after enough of these sessions, I'd figure that out. So yeah, thank you for that. And we've got a couple of questions as well. We're running a little short on time, but we will have a few more questions. Some questions about the current state in the COVID environment, especially the specific question about managing people as ergonomic considerations, but just generally, will there be increased access to work from home after COVID when there is a return to the workplace? And will that same if there is an availability of more remote work, will that open up people outside of the NCR for some of these positions potentially?
So to piggyback off of the conversation earlier, it's hard to tell where we're at, but it certainly is. Like, we have a full plan that we have a three-phased approach, I guess, that we're looking at from a TBS lens as a whole. And that three-phased approach, the phase one was when we were all back, without any access, and we all needed to stay home. The second phase is, okay, now we're letting people who need to work in the workplace to be more effective come back safely. And then the phase three is kind of planning towards what life will look like after the pandemic. Those phases are very fluid in the sense that we can move back to phase one depending on the pandemic situation. So all that to say that right now the management team at TBS is looking at this very seriously to understand what that means for flexibility moving forward post pandemic situation. So is there a possibility to do more after? Possibly, and management is certainly taking it seriously. There is a full-fledged plan, and it's not something that's flying under the radar, if you will. So I don't have a definite answer, but it's definitely being looked at by the department.
Okay, great. And we'll take just maybe one more question. And there's a question there about leave with income averaging, and maybe if you can address that specifically, but also just more broadly in terms of alternative work arrangements, flex work arrangements, things like that. Is the department fairly open to that sort of setup?
So I'm going to pass this over to Isabel, but I like that do FIs report to the Controller General. Some do, our corporate services don't. So I just wanted to kind of do that, and that's our group. And Isabel, would you be able to take the leave with income averaging question?
So leave with income averaging, obviously it's a benefit offered to some employees. It all depends on the operational requirements of the position. So I do know that it has been supported, in various teams within the corporate services sector over the past years. It is not something that's not looked at or considered, but for sure, it all depends on, the team's operational requirements. It has to also account for other team members, leave plans. So, to respect that. In some instances, like the majority of us have very small teams, so we just have to be respectful and mindful of everyone's plans over the summer. But for sure, it's something that's that we can entertain should it be something interesting to some potential candidates. The office is located in Ottawa, just to answer that question, 90 Elgin. It's a very, very lovely and very new building. It brings a lot of great benefits and facilities that are brand new and with a few restaurants, and not restaurants, but like amenities essentially within the building. Do you want me to take the last question as well?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. Actually, I think she did. Nicole did mention about future work from home possibilities, so that has been addressed. Yeah, I think we've covered them all off actually.
Yeah,
which is
the skills
we're just about out of time. So I just want to say I appreciate we do have a couple more questions coming in late. Unfortunately, we're running short on time, but your departmental mailbox email account is available on the ACFO website, the same place you found the link to this session. So if you do have additional questions for the team from TBS, I know they'll be happy to take them there. And of course, you can find our CV template there, and you can use that same email address for submitting your CV if you're interested in any positions they might have open in the future. So with that, it's just my responsibility to say thank you very much, Isabel, Nicole, and Luke. It's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you very much for your participation. Our next session kicks off at 10 o'clock with the Department of National Defense. So for those who are hopping from session to session, you have about 5 minutes to go refill your coffees. In the meantime, Isabel, Nicole, and Luke will let you guys refill your coffees and get on with your day. So thank you very much for your participation, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.